Hey, hello and good day, everybody. I'm your host, Regina Randle, and I'd like to welcome you to Faith and Theory. Faith and Theory is a podcast that's all about exploring biblically based, down-to-earth, practical steps for overcoming life's challenges. Faith and Theory was born out of my love for Christ and the understanding that faith without works is dead. As a woman of God, I understand the importance of having answers that are rooted in biblical principles. And as a therapist, I also recognize the need to break down those principles into practical, everyday steps we can use to help put our faith into action. The goal of Faith and Theory is simple: to create a safe space that leaves us feeling empowered with answers, supported, loved, and refreshed. That said, are you ready? I sure hope so, because this episode starts right here, right now on Faith and Theory. Here we go. Let's get started. Hello.
Hey, good morning. Hey.
How you doing?
Welcome to everybody. I'm excited that we can come together and kind of talk about this marriage thing from the perspective of a believer, the things that we expected, the things we didn't expect, the things that we have learned, the things that, we may have struggled or overcome, things that we're still walking through. And the whole purpose is because I want our listeners to be able to know that they're not in this journey by themselves. Like, I know for me personally, I don't know about Richard, but I know for me personally, when as we were going through, I always felt like we got to be the only one on the planet that's going through the things that we're going through. And especially as believers, you kind of feel like you're exempt from having to go through those struggles, or thinking that just because you're Christian, like you shouldn't have to go through this, or that everything else must be okay, or that we have to hide in shame and not tell anybody that we're going through these things. Because as believers, we're supposed to be okay, right? We're supposed to be able to resolve anything just with prayer. That's always the thing that, we're told to go to. But there are practical things that are necessary for you to be able to walk out that thing, to walk out marriage itself, because it's hard. So I'll just have you guys to kind of introduce yourself, who you are, how many years you've been married, and anything else that you like to share just to jump off. Let's start with Faith. Ezra.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning,
guys.
Good morning.
So tell us, how many years have you guys been together?
So a total of 8 years. We met in 2015. We were co-workers and we became really good friends very quickly. And then we started dating on and off. We had a child together, and 2 years after having her co-parenting and kind of buckling against what God was saying and buckling against our flesh, we got back together, we got married, and so here we are, almost 4 years married. It's just been a really great time being married to your best friend. Is the foundation of our relationship.
That's awesome.
That definitely makes it easier.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. So let's go to our next couple. We have Leevan. This how deep his voice is. We got Bear right on the other end.
It's early in the morning.
Right?
Yeah.
So
That's my voice. That was early in the morning.
Awesome, guys. So tell us what was it like for your courtship, and how long have you guys been married? What was your journey like?
Well,
We've been together from high school.
High school
Sweethearts.
Yeah, 10th grade, and she was in the 9th grade. So that was
Wow.
it, man.
That's a long time.
That's your life.
Very long time.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So how long have you guys been married?
We've been married for 14 years and together for 25. So we both went to the same Christian all-age high school in the Bahamas. And I was in grade 7, and he was in grade 8. And the first thing he did was send my cousin to send me a note. Like, I like you, do you like me? And I would not talk to him.
I remember that.
I'm like, I was raised by strong women. They're like, no, he needs to come talk to you. So he waited until he got in grade 10.
Nah, she had a bunch of different before that.
So he waited until
No,
he got
you had boyfriends.
boyfriends in grade 7.
Yes, you did.
So So he waited until he got a grade 10, and I was actually waiting on him the whole time. But I said at that age, I'm like, I need him to step up. Yeah, he was just playing around with that one. So when he finally stepped up, he got some courage, and then the rest is history. The rest is history.
It. Oh, we started out with the classic "I love you, do you love me? Yes or no" letter. I love it.
Exactly. Back in the day. Well, that's us. And so 14 years married, 25 together. We have 4 boys, 14, 10, 8, and 2.
Wow.
Yeah, so we've grown up together for sure.
Yeah.
Our goal is always just to keep Christ in the center, because besides that, it spirals out of control.
That's true.
We're not perfect people. We're just working towards one goal, which is to get to the kingdom and get our kids to the kingdom. So,
amen.
That's us.
Me and my boo, we met when we were in the Navy. He got on my nerves, so we argued a lot when we was at work. But I gotta be honest, that was the arguing wasn't real. You don't think so?
The getting on your nerves wasn't real. That's pretty much what probably attracted us to each other.
Yeah, so me and Richard, we have been together 19 years now, 19 years, and we've been married for 16, and we met in the Navy. We worked together, like you and Ezra Faith. It started out like as a friendship. We had fun together. We debated. We had difference in opinions, and somehow I don't even know when it started. And we talk about this often. Like, we don't know when we went from co-workers to friends to dating. It just kind of like went all in together. Yeah, it just happened, but I'm glad it did. He gets on my nerves sometimes, but he's still my boo. He my Hercules. So
Yeah.
So I'm glad that, we talked about the friendships, the unity. Danielle, you guys talked about how you guys are coming together and, raising your children together. It's the same thing with you, Faith, you and Ezra. You guys are doing this thing together. You're keeping God in the center of it. And it's the same as, with Richard and I. And we'll have the Dancys. They're going to be coming in. They've been together 41 years, or they've been married 41 years. And come Valentine's Day, they'll be celebrating their anniversary. And so that says a lot, because to be married 41 years in this day and age, it's unheard of. We know, from our own experiences that marriage is difficult, but to say, hey, I've done this thing for 41 years. That's phenomenal. So I want to kick it off by just, talking about one of the scriptures that God gave to me for this, Genesis 22:24 and Ephesians 5:3, where it talks about how the two became one flesh. And so I just kind of want to ask you guys, like, in your experiences over the years, what was it like for you guys becoming one?
I guess the irony for me is, this is Danielle, is that opposites attract for some strange reason. And God always tends to bring that opposite person. So wherever you're weak, they're typically strong, or wherever, you're strong, they may be weak. And so because opposites attract, the two becoming one could be a journey. Yes. Let me put it that way, because physically that's what happens when you have kids, and those are like your kids, and it's your own little island. But that's one area that I wish God could come down from above and say, okay, this is how you do this. This is what I'm looking for.
Exactly.
But I think it connotates to the 3 in 1 for the Trinity. There's this marriage between the three. They work, in different, they have different attributes. So I think that's underlying. That's what he's trying to teach us, how to coexist and, be centered at the same time.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that, because that's always been, my thing, especially me and Gina. We're like, we're so opposite. It's insane. But I feel like God knew what he was doing with that, because, what should happen is the two opposites should combine to become something perfect. It's just so insanely hard to get those two opposites to actually, come together and, just try to agree on one thing, because we always have our own, thought process. And, we always want to feel like we want to go the direction that we think we should go. But like I said, God knew what he was doing, because that's the perfect way to go, is to bring those two things together. Because with me and Gina, I mean, I procrastinate all the time, and I feel like she's in a hurry. She wants to do things right now, like right now,
Absolutely.
right now. So that's her. Where I'm like, let's throttle back a little bit, and we have not really figured out how to combine those two things, so we actually get perfect timing, because that's what would come with it, is perfect timing. But we just have not gotten there yet. We try, but it's a struggle. But again, I just think the opposite attracts. That's how it meant it to be, and I think that's really how it should be. You gotta work at it.
Yeah, I think that when you talk about, like, even with our differences of how I'm go and you're laid back, I think that for me personally, the beauty in that is that from you, I get the permission essentially to slow down, and I can tell when I'm going and going and going, and then I'm getting exhausted and I tire myself out. I'm sure you see that. But then to have you to say it's okay, even like in life, when I get frustrated with stuff, to hear you say it's okay, don't worry about it. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to worry about. It's almost like that balance for me is having someone that says it's okay to calm down. It's okay to slow down. And maybe for you, the opposite is like, okay, got to get some fire up under there.
Yeah. So sometimes it's like, okay, you know what? She right. I need to get this done. So yeah, that's what I get from her. That's our way of trying to get it together. But again, it's still frustrating. She gets frustrated when she has to relax. I get frustrated when I got to hurry up and get something done. So that's just really what it is. We just got to, like I said, figure that out.
Yeah. So Faith, Ezra, what does it mean to you guys to become one?
So I definitely am laughing, and I agree with what all of you have said about opposites attracting. And for the most part, I found that with being friends initially and then dating and before married, I was like, oh yeah, we're a lot alike. But when it comes to processing, I learned this, the analogy of crock pot versus microwave. When it comes to scenarios,
that is a good way to put it.
Thinking, Ezra is definitely the crock pot and I'm the microwave. It's like, come on, pow, pow, pow. It's gonna burn on a couple of sides. We need to talk about this. We need to do this now. And that's not always what is required per situation. And besides that, with him being the husband and being the leader, if he says, hey, I don't want to talk about it right now. And anybody outside of marriage, anything, if somebody doesn't want to talk about something or deal with something, it's not going to be dealt with because they don't want to. You can't make somebody deal with a situation, no matter if it's just about what are we going to eat or something life altering, like where are we going to move or career, things like that. But as far as the two becoming one, I've had a great therapist over the past few years of my life that a couple of years ago, probably almost 2 now, they given me an analogy about when you get married, you're not your parents. You come from them, but you're not them. You're not your grandparents. You're not your parents. When you guys come together, you're an organism, a brand new organism that has never been before. Yes, you may have likes and dislikes from where you come from, but you guys together become one organism. You can have traditions that are similar, but everything that you guys do is brand new. It's starting from scratch. You can do whatever you guys want. Right. And that's 2 separate families, 2 separate people coming together. This is one new organism that has never existed on earth before, ever. Right. But that was so insightful for me. I never heard before. I had gone to premarital counseling, which was pretty good. But the counseling that the therapist that I had over the last few years, that was something that was just really amazing to me.
Yeah, I love when you said that this is a new organism that has never existed before on earth. Like, that gave me chills. I'm like, oh, me and my baby, we have never existed. Before us, there was no one like us, and there's not going to be anyone like us after. Like, we are our own unique organism. Like, that was very beautiful. I heard a lot of what you guys have talked about, like maybe the highs and lows and the things that you've gone through that are just really practical. What would you say was the hardest part about becoming one? Like, well, let me start. Richard, have you thought about that? Like, what was the hardest part for you for us becoming one?
Basically, it was the act of it, actually becoming one, trying to, combine who we are. Because again, we both have our own feelings, we both have our own opinions, about different things. And a lot of times, instead of like us just sitting back, listening and considering the thoughts of the other, our mate, we tend to just go on what we believe and what we think should be or the way we should go. So just actually combining ourselves, how we think, sitting back and just listening and, okay, let me see if, like you really know what you're talking about, if you have a good idea, and just listening to that and trying to, learn from it. I think that's been, one of the hardest things. Again, it's just removing yourself, just
I
trying
think that was the
together.
hardest thing for me too. Like for me, it wasn't necessarily that we had to agree. Like I think the coexistence in disagreement was the hardest part for me. Because I mean, I've shared with some of my listeners before, and of course my husband understands that for me, it was like, this ain't working out, deuces. I'm gone, I'm cutting, this is not, it's uncomfortable. And so the discomfort of the disagreements, or the discomfort of not, feeling like you're on one accord, or that we can't come into alignment with what it is that we want to do. And remember, we're opposites. So we had different opinions on almost everything. I think our opinions were different on everything except raising kids. And just being kind to people. Like those were the only two things that we agreed on. And we had difference in opinions. And for me, it was not so much that that we had to agree on everything, but it just seems like it was hard. And so the hardest part, like when I think about what it means to become one, I think about becoming one means unity. And it felt like it was difficult just to get on one accord. It was difficult just to be a union. And that's what made it hard for me. And having to take, like you talked about self, the same thing for me, having to take myself out of that to say that even though this is difficult, it's not just about me. It's not about things being easy for me. This is about us and trying to figure out how we can do this thing as a unit. So, Danielle, like, what was the hardest part about becoming one for you guys?
Leevan, I answered the last. You want to answer this one? He's staying in the safe zone. He's staying in the safe zone.
That is a safe zone.
Right? Y'all not gonna get me in trouble then.
Listen, this is for our listeners. This is for our listeners, and I want them to understand, like, people, because it's, even though this is for everybody, I really want Christians to understand that you're not alone. Like, we have struggles. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be, that you never disagree. It's not going to be any of those things. And I just want our listeners to understand, like, you're not the only one going through this. We all, have our things. So when you think about becoming one for you guys, what was the hardest part?
I think we bump head a lot, for real. Like, say we're opposites, very opposite. She have her ways, and it's hard to break it sometimes. But she's stern, and she knows what she wants, and there's no breaking it. So I just have to go mute sometimes. Most of the times I just have to go with it. I got to ride. I just ride with it. So.
So what I hear you saying, Leevan, is that sometimes the stubbornness, wanting to get our own way, can kind of make it difficult for that oneness.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I could be real stubborn sometimes. I like to, but a lot of times, just to save the peace, I just ride with it.
I think it has a lot. I think it has a lot to do with family dynamics and bringing that into play, and then connecting the two. So, and then I go back to the Bible. I'm like, well, this is God said. This is really no debating it. How are we sitting here debating something that's in the Word? That's the common. That's the commonality. But again, that's how I was raised. Everything was centered around the Word of God. That's the manual. So when you deviate from that, I'm looking at you like, no, that's not what the Bible says. And then God made Eve as a helpmeet. So we still trying to kind of dig into why Adam needed the Eve and why Eve needed the Adam, and what that connection was purposed for.
Yeah.
Because obviously, growing up in church, you're like, oh, he needs help. But if he's not accepting my help, then what's the point of me even being here?
I think it's interesting that you talked about, like, Adam needing Eve and what's exactly in the Bible, and we're not deviating from that, because I'm sure Richard can attest that I was that. I was like, this is what the word say, and you're supposed to love me like this, and we're supposed to do, like hardcore with it, right? But the thing that I learned as we continue to try to like walk this thing out was that on some levels, it was almost like a self-righteousness. Like, okay, we got this word and we're going to do this. And it made me not have compassion for him as a human, as a person that had his own experiences that he had to walk out. And it was really like God having to show me, number one, it was never, and let me just say this, in my mind, I never said I'm perfect or I'm better than him. I never felt that way, like I'm perfect or better than him. But I think the actions that I had, because I was so, adamant, like, this is what we're going to do. This is how it's supposed to be done. And that whole rush that Richard talked about, like, we got to get it together and you're not getting it together fast enough. That impatient made me, kind of harsh towards my husband and not even having a level of compassion and understanding, like, even though, yes, this is the word, but we have to walk this thing out and understand each other as human beings. Definitely. That we have our own backgrounds. When you talk about like having these family things that we're bringing in, even if we're not bringing in a family itself, like the people or the problems, we're still bringing in our own emotional baggage from the family dynamic that we have to walk ourselves through. So all right. So Faith, Ezra, what was the hardest part about becoming one for you guys?
I would say much like my brother Lavelle, I have a wife that can be incredibly stubborn sometimes. and much like him, I would just be like, all right, whatever you say goes, because I'd much rather not have a problem.
Stop laughing, Richard.
That's a God thing. That's what we do.
I never have an issue with not going back and forth with her. I'd much rather I won't say let her feel like she's, guiding the ship or whatever, but happy wife, happy life,
okay,
type of thing. But I would say that would be the hardest thing about becoming one, at least on my end, was just learning when and when not to like step in, because I never wanted to like disrespect her or overstep my boundaries, like as a man, be like, listen to what I say or anything of that nature. But there has been times I had to be like, all right, now we got to dial it back, tone it down, let's reevaluate this. And not necessarily go with my way, but let's go on a path that we feel like that would make the most sense for us, that we're both comfortable with, type of thing.
Yeah, I fully agree with him. The hardest part for me has been me going from being too hard on him to being too hard on myself. And initially being too hard on him is because I'm too hard on myself. The only reason I would treat him that way is because of my own insecurities. I initially was really rushy with a lot of things. Like, you don't have a sense of urgency, X, Y, and Z. But then I had to step back and be like, no, you're stressed out and out of control, and you're out of order. And it took like a blow up that happened because of me. And Ezra, because he really, truly, I'm not just saying it just to say it, like Ezra truly loves me like Christ loves the church. And he loves me how God loves us, like in everything that I've done. And he's just so gracious. He's the quiet, he's the calm, he's the crock pot. He really washes me in the water of the word. And he's like, just calm down. I forgive you. It's okay. That's his response to everything. And because of my relationship with God and me being hard on myself, it was hard to accept that. So even more recently, when we had an issue that was my fault, and we got into it really bad, the Lord rebuked me. I knew I was wrong, but God had to readjust my perception on what it means to be a submitted wife. And because I'm very independent, there's nothing wrong with those things, but you can't be over your husband. And because Ezra, he's the one who's really soft-spoken, pliable, really, it's okay, just, work this out. And he would let me, I'm just going to let her be. I took, because of me not knowing necessarily my place, I would overstep him a lot. The Lord had to show me, I had to repent to him, to the Lord, and would show me times that I was. And so although those are convicting good things, so I can get in order and my husband is patient and he's here for me to do those things, to get in order, I began to beat myself up and Satan come along. See, being a submitted wife, you can't do nothing you want to do. You can't you can't. And it was like my relationship with God was kind of like reflecting that. Like when you first get saved, Satan tries to give you this laundry list of all these things you can't do. Meanwhile, then you miss out on all the benefits that come with being covered.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned submission, Faith, because that was one of the hardest things for me to submit, because number one, I didn't understand what submission was. Let's start with that. And I grew up in a family of women who were very strong and had dominant personalities. And so for me, I was like, submit. They're not about to walk all over me. You're not just about to tell me what to do. You're not about to control me. That was my whole idea of what submission was, just being controlled. And God had to show me in the word that submission really is not about being controlled. It's about coming under the protection, under the care of your spouse, of your husband, being able to say, you know, when you think about it, when you have someone, you talk about Ezra, like watching you with the word and caring for you and looking out for you and saying, hey, calm down. I care about your best interest. When you think about having someone who cares about your best interest, why would you not want to come under their care? Why would you not want to say, okay, I'm going to take this load off my shoulder and just kind of surrender this control of this situation to someone who cares and who can cover me in this? So I kind of want to talk just to the ladies for a second, like the most difficult aspect of submission. Danielle, can you chime in? And what was like the most difficult aspect of submission for you?
Honestly, for me, the Bible, I try to make it alive because it can get confusing when you're pulling, and especially if you're using it out of context, because you could say the issue with being unequally yoked or out of alignment or submit one to another, or what's another scripture? A man is the head and the wife is, so you put all of it together and you have to ask God, where are you at? Where are you at? So I think it's different levels that you have to be at where you can be comfortable trusting headship, and trusting the fact that they're going to God first before they're coming to you. Is no self-involved, is no ignorance or intolerance or past you want this confidence of knowing that they're talking to God first before they're coming to you with any type of directives.
Yeah. I think when you talk about, where are we in this dynamic or in this relationship as far as being able to submit and lining up with what the word of God says, for me, as it pertains to submission, again, I have to go back to compassion. And I've shared this again with my listeners, like one of the hardest things for me was forgiveness. It was the hardest thing for me. And so when I felt offended, I was not, listen, I already put it in my mind. I'm not submitting to nothing because he just needs to get it right. There's no submission, right? You're out of line. And so the impatient part of us, just like when Faith, you talked about how the scripture even tells us how we want to rule over our husband, rule over this situation, we want to take control over things. And so for me, it was like, you got to get it together. That personality that Richard talked about, where I was like, okay, we got to get together. Things, it needs to happen. It needs to do this. And if I'm going to submit, then you need to do this first. But it was all about self. So it's like, before I can do this, I need you to do this. And if you're not doing that, then I'm hurt and we're just not like on one accord. And so for me, the hardest part of submission really was compassion and grace. That fell under, being able to forgive or have grace for my husband when he either made a mistake or he didn't live up to my standards. Like God had to start teaching me, like, you don't worry about him. I got him. Just trust, like you say, trust that he's talking to me. Trust that I'm working on him, and let's work on you on the sidelines, because you have to learn how to have that grace and that compassion for your husband, to give him the time that he needs to grow into what I have called him to. So that being said, I kind of want to talk to the guys on the flip side, when it says that, in Ephesians, it talks about how the wives are to respect their husbands, and that's part of that submission, but their husbands are to love their wives like Christ loved the church. And so when you look at it, just in the practical sense of the dynamic of what we go through in a marriage, what makes it difficult if at all, for you to say, I got to love this woman and surrender self?
Well, quite simply, what makes it difficult is that we're human. Selfishness that's embedded in us. We're born with that. We think about what we want and who we are, like forever, all the time. So I feel like that's one of the biggest things that makes marriage itself difficult. As a man, I feel like that makes us not fully, completely love our wives as Christ loved the church, like we're supposed to. Because I believe that is a significant part of the submission. I can't blame, but I'm not a woman. I'm just saying from my perspective, I can't completely blame a woman not being completely submissive if the husband is not loving his wife the way that he's supposed to. Like, why would she? Why she's not going to feel love. She's not going to feel protected. She's not going to feel like she should be submitting because she doesn't have that full love that, again, Christ has for the church.
So if I'm hearing you right, then what you're saying is that it's pretty much like a level of selfishness that gets in the way, not only I'm saying that from a white perspective, that gets in the way of us showing that respect and submission, but it gets in the way of men saying that I need to love her. I need to put down what I desire and then just pick up what it is that I need to give to her so she can feel comfortable with submission.
Definitely. And I for real, I feel like God told me this like years ago. Like literally, he's talking like, dude, you gotta let yourself go, man. You gotta, stop worrying about you and the stuff that makes you happy and focus on your wife. And like I said years ago, and I'm still struggling trying to get that right. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard. Again, we just got to focus on the right thing, and I believe that would bring much more happiness than what we have now. Because I mean, you think about it, we'll do little things on the side. Like I said, we could want to go hang out with the fellas or play video games or something like that. And it's a small moment of happiness, but that's because we're not thinking about the longer moment of happiness. Because it would be a happier time. You and your spouse would just enjoy each other so much more. You'd be less stressed. You wouldn't be thinking about certain things if you actually did just focus on the other.
Yeah.
So I believe that's the key to what your wife is supposed to submit to your husband. That's the key to it. Like, you got to do something for that submission. You know what I'm saying? It can't just happen. We all wanted to, you know what I'm saying? And I'm sure God said you're supposed to do that. But, you put a woman in that position that they're just supposed to submit when this guy sucks. That's got to suck. That's got to be a horrible way to, to live or to get through your marriage.
Yeah. Ezra, Leevan, from your perspective, being able to demonstrate that love that Christ has for the church, what are some of the things that you guys experience that say, you know what, this is hard for me to put this down and really just show her the type of love that I should be showing her?
I was just going to agree with Richard. We have a level of selfishness that we could display sometimes. And I know for me, I've been extremely busy and my whole life been like chaotic, you know what I mean? Because I've always been an athlete, pretty much from I was 8 years old, you know what I mean? I always been chasing a dream. And my parents and my father always kept me focused on that. And I've been very good from I was 14 years old. I've been the best in the world. So I think that play a major role in, in me. I would say, yeah, it was a distraction a little bit because I was so focused on that all these years. Like, I'm a 4-time Olympian, you know what I mean? So, it's hard within itself just to be an Olympian and winning a medal at the Olympics. There's millions of people in the world to win a medal. Yeah. I've won medals and all that stuff. So
that's got to be super hard.
It's hard, and it's hard for her to understand or understood the stress and everything I had to deal with that. But also, I still had to try to understand where she was coming from as well. That was the most difficult part for me because I felt like I was doing this for her. But she needed time and she needed you know, she needed me to be here. But, I was so focused on trying to win the medal, and it took away from, I think, the bond a little bit, and so after, I was 20 Olympics. So I was training for my fifth Olympics and my father died or whatever. And I just couldn't do it anymore. And I think we got closer ever since I think I basically retired from competing and stuff like that, me being home more. But even though I'm coaching now at FSU, is still pretty much the same. But I think I have to try to listen more and try to, because I've been a professional so long, I got to listen to what she wants me to do and not thinking I'm doing what I think she would want. You know what I mean? And me buying stuff for her doesn't mean, I showing love, like buying stuff. But to her, that don't mean nothing to her. So it's like, now I need time.
Yeah.
And so now I gotta, try to find time and spend more time, with kids being involved, it gets kind of hard,
Yeah.
It gets kind of hard when you get a lot of kids involved and we don't have that time for ourselves to really go out and, just simple stuff as having dinner together, you know what I mean? So sometimes we can miss that, and I just feel like men, I'm very busy. So I just have to just kind of pick the times and make it a point to find the time to spend with her and just be like, because we could become distant, and living like roommates sometimes, with all the stuff that's going on. So, I think that's a lot I had to work with, and work on over the years.
Yeah.
You got to keep that spark going, somehow we got to figure out how to, and then because sometimes we feel like we need to be loved too. So it's like sometimes if we're not getting that too, if we don't feel like we being loved, then sometimes we might just, she ain't care, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or what's not. So sometimes you could feel that way, but that's not what it is. And then you tend to like just grow apart. But then you got to come back and find yourself, this is the person I love, and figure out ways to stay together, Yeah.
I heard you talk about basically you learning to speak her language, because I heard you say that you felt like you were doing those things for her, but that's not what she wanted. Right. She wanted something different. And I can attest to that. Like in our marriage, for a long time, I felt like Richard didn't love me. Like he doesn't love me. He's not, doing the things that I need him to do. And I can remember us having this argument and he going, how could you think that I don't love you? Like, how could you think that? Right. But then understanding to speak each other's language, like he felt like I wasn't respecting him, that I didn't care for him. And I'm like, well, I watched your clothes and I do this and that for you, but that's not what he needed from me. What he needed from me was me to build him up, because I spent more time criticizing him than building him up and telling him how great he was or saying thank you. And for me, he will always tell me how much he loved me and how much, he felt like I was a great wife and so forth and so on. But I just needed him to wash a plate, right? So we talking about love language and learning how to speak each other languages and how important that is when we think to ourselves that we're doing something, but if we're not giving our spouse that things they need in a relationship, then it can make it hard for us to demonstrate submission or love.
And if I can say this, I think love languages change possibly over the years.
They absolutely do.
And you have to do a spot check. So like for us, we're 15. Dating, and then we go into high school, and then we go to college, and then we have a child. So every time, I think like every year you should do just a spot check to say, okay, where are you at? What are your needs now? Because it changes. It changes, and sometimes men, they don't always know. Women, we don't always know what's changing for each other unless we do a little spot check every now and again. And another thing I learned is that because that's my love language, that's not necessarily the way that I want to receive love. So if I'm a gift giver, I'll give gifts all day, but gifts are not my love language. And to me, that's strange. but that's all about knowing your spouse,
Mm-hmm.
Being an expert on your spouse. So,
and communicating those things, because I'm glad you mentioned about the love language changing, because my love language for so many years where it was acts of service. Like, I just need your actions to speak as loud as your words, right? And it has been that way year after year after year. And just recently I retook the love language test. And this time it was quality time. And my husband already knew that. Let me just,
hey,
because he
good
was
job,
paying
Richard.
attention, right? He was paying attention to his wife. And what I discovered is that, yes, our love language change over time based on like our needs being met, based on, what's happening, us having children, so forth and so on. But the thing that I recognized because I was shocked that my love language had changed. But what I recognized in that is that need for the acts of service, he had begun feeling that. And so because he had been feeling that, the thing that made me, I was like, I just want my husband. Like, I'm enjoying him now. I want this quality time. And so that changed. But Ezra, we can chime in on some of the things that you felt like really kind of made it hard for you to say, I'm going to love her the way that Christ loved the church.
For me, it was a couple things.
Okay.
I think one of the first things, and Renee could definitely attest to this. Renee, to my knowledge, has been saved her entire life. I mean, personally, I've grown up in the church, but I haven't necessarily walked that walk. You know what I'm saying? So it really wasn't until we got together where I was just like, wow, I've never seen somebody young, committed to the Lord like that. And that really struck me. I was familiar with the lifestyle, of course, but I wasn't living it. And she kind of like pushed me in that regard, unbeknownst to her, but she was just doing her thing. And I was really, I admired that. But even in marriage, like I honestly could say I wasn't as committed as I could be. And that was difficult. And then, bringing a child into it, I always felt like I couldn't spread my love equally, type of thing. And even now, like she mentioned, we have a third on the way, and that's something I always freak out about. It's like, how can I love all three of them and my wife all at the same time and make sure everybody gets enough QT and enough love and enough, hugs and kisses? Like that boggles my mind. Another thing is, but I really enjoy personal time. I'm a oldest sibling, so I was always in a position of, caring for and looking over. So when I had that alone time, like I really harped on it. Like that was my thing. And Renee is just not like that. She likes to be up under me as much as possible. Like if I didn't have to work, she would just be the happiest woman in the world. I know that. Those two things is something that I definitely don't struggle with anymore. But initially in our marriage and just in our relationship, that it was hard for me to even really like deal with and cope with. I'm in a lot better place, thank God, for that. And her being understanding for the most part and helping me, that has definitely gotten me through to where I am now with that.
Yeah. It sounds to me like what you're saying is that what you found difficult was just being able to live up to the standard, because you mentioned like, how do I give all three of them this love and my wife? How do I be the man that she needs me to be? And she's been saved all her life. And now I'm walking into this thing and really trying to learn and grow and still be what my family needs me to be. So it sounds almost like for you, it was more about almost like a stress that I have to be a certain thing for my wife, being that provider, being that person that, covers her and so forth and so on. Would you say that sounds about right?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually one more thing would be to like not bring like old habits into our marriage, like old ways of thinking. Like she mentioned earlier, like we were definitely a new organism, so we didn't have to necessarily stick to things that we seen our parents do or our family members do, because I thought I had an idea of what the man's role is supposed to be in a relationship, let alone a marriage. And I was definitely far off. I thought, hey, if I just paid the bills and went to work every day, hey, my hands were clean. I was done at that point. And it's definitely not that. It's definitely not that.
Hey, Faith and Theory family, I just want to take the time out to say thank you for tuning into the show today. It's been my absolute pleasure to share with you the everyday journey of everyday people who can inspire your heart. If you've enjoyed this episode, do me a favor and leave a review. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like, follow, and share, and subscribe to my website to get exclusive content and to stay in the know of what's to come. Until next time, many blessings to you and yours from Faith and Theory. Bye-bye.